time with Game Winner. Where does he sit? For some people, he's maybe not a spectacular horse, but he was very workmanlike, 143.67, 5/10 slower than Jaywalk's run at the same distance in the Juvenile Fillies. And we'll talk a lot more about Jaywalk and her prospects. And I've always been pushing that envelope of Fillies running against Colts. And John Service may entertain it, maybe even Kenny McPeek, even though they were beaten convincingly in the Juvenile Fillies. But we'll talk more about that. But back to the winner. Back to the horse that's going to be the Eclipse Award champion in the 2-year-old male division, that being Bob Baffert's Game Winner. He was workmanlike. He may not have been spectacular, but you have to be encouraged by, number one, him being able to get over the Churchill surface, and you hope that and pray, if you're backing him, that the surface will be of similar or absolutely identical if he can make it to the Kentucky Derby on that day in the first Saturday in May. That's number one. Number two, what you also have to be encouraged by is that he overcame trouble. Now, overcoming trouble in a 13 or 14 horse field is still a different animal than a 20 horse field. So you certainly don't want to encounter trouble in a race like the Kentucky Derby, no matter what, despite what transpired in the Juvenile. But it is good to know that this horse can overcome trouble, got bumped in the stretch where he lost a little bit of his momentum. Probably you could make an argument that had that not happened, maybe his time would have been identical or even a little faster than Jaywalk's. But really, it's not so much about time; it's how you do it. Is the horse laboring? Did he do it in a way which would indicate he can recuperate and move forward? That's really what it boils down to, and that's what's most paramount. That's what's paramount, more important than strictly having a dazzling time, because we've seen many horses do that and then regress. Skip Away comes to mind. He ran a bang-up race, ran a huge race in the Bluegrass, and then he finished 12th in the Derby, just had nothing. And later on in his career, it was proven in the Breeders' Cup Classic 20 years ago, in 1998, that it just seemed like the Churchill surface wasn't his favorite. But then again, he got barbecued and roasted pretty good in the Jockey Club Gold Cup when he and Gentleman dueled each other into defeat in New York prior to that Breeders' Cup, the best Breeders' Cup Classic probably ever. And that had more to do with that than not liking the surface. But the point is that where does Game Winner go from here? How good is he? He's by Candy Ride, a horse who was dazzling in 2003 in defeating Medaglia d'Oro in the Pacific Classic at 1.25 miles. So the pedigree is definitely 10 furlongs. We never really got to the bottom of what Candy Ride could have done later on. We've seen horses do well at 1.25 miles, and then when there's an upgrade in class, they don't do so well. But certainly based on that race and the fact that he was just a brilliant horse, that his pedigree certainly screams of Derby. And he's also by Indiana, an unraced AP Indy mare. So he's got that bottom end on the dam side that would indicate that's 1.5 mile pedigree. AP Indy, the 1992 Belmont Stakes winner, horse of the year, a son of Seattle Slew. So he's got that in his pedigree going for him. And he's also got the white-haired wonder, that being Bob Baffert, handling his preparation for these upcoming races. So Game Winner has a lot of things going for him, but the question will be, will these top 3 finishers or top 4 horses in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile still be at the head of affairs in the 3-year-old division? What will their role be? Will they be major contenders in these races? Good Magic went on and had a pretty good 3-year-old season, was surpassed by Justify, a horse who didn't even run as a 2-year-old, as we all know. Bolt d'Oro was the favorite going in, had a lot of trouble in that race, still ran 3rd. He didn't end up being the next, best thing since, Secretariat or the Guggenheim Press. He didn't do anything. Solomini could never, ever change leads correctly. And even though he ran well in the Los Alamitos Futurity after, finishing ahead of Bolt d'Oro, turning the tables on him in some small degree after being thrashed in the Forerunner Stakes, which is now, of course, the American Pharaoh, he just never was able to get his act together, and he got roasted by another unraced 2-year-old out of Todd Pletcher's stable named Magnum Moon, and he really probably had no business being in the Kentucky Derby, and ran 10th. Then the day that Justify, I think the day after Justify captured the Triple Crown, he ran in the Affirmed, and he got smoked by Draft Pick there, and they decided to turn him out. He's since come back, and he's into training. He's back into training now. So is that what we're going to be left with these horses? Will they end up being horses that go from being, quite coveted to being, just, like I said, nothing as 3-year-olds? What will be, how will Game Winner still be at the head of the class? Is he going to really be one of the ones? Because people are waiting on Instagram from the Jerry Hollendorfer stable, and he didn't run in the Del Mar Futurity or the American Pharoah or the Breeders' Cup after smashing his opposition by double-digit lengths in his first 2 starts. A lot of people are high on him. I think he's the son of Medaglia Roadster, a horse that Game Winner beat out of Bob Baffert's brigade of 2-year-olds in the Del Mar Futurity. He had a throat issue. He's put away for the rest of the year. Probably won't come back in the low sal. Bob Baffert didn't put him on a path to prep for the Breeders' Cup. And again, he's a horse that people, including Baffert, obviously the main one, the person who trains him, is still very, very high on him, and he's going to get freshened up. We're going to see what he can do. So there's a lot of horses, and Baffert's got a number of other horses, along with some other trainers, that we're going to talk a lot about in the coming months as we get closer and closer to the Kentucky Derbies. John Asher would say there's only this many days and this many hours left for the Derby, and as we all know, that was his thing, and we're going to certainly keep that going. We're going to actually do a little bit of a ticker on that in tribute to him, and also is it being kind of part of the entertainment package of the Derby, that there's only but so many days and weeks left, and trust me, the first Saturday in May will arrive sooner than later. So it'll be very, very interesting to see how good is Game Winner. Some people may be unimpressed. Some people may be, not so enthralled or overwhelmed with him because he's out of the, the Baffert barn. And, you've got some people that aren't, his biggest fans. So we'll just wait and see if this form is going to be the type of form in which these 2-year-olds are going to be very, very good as 3-year-olds. It very well could be we're going to see some lightly raced horses before 2018 closes out, and certainly when the new year begins, that will have that talent. And there's a good chance, given the current trends, that talent is going to translate into, or it's going to it's going to transform itself into a monster that the other 3-year-olds are going to, basically have nightmares about going into these classic races. So, once again, Game Winner, the son of Candy Ride, out of an AP Indy mare, wins the Breeders' Cup. Juvenile Colts, not only punching his ticket as or stamping himself as the Kentucky Derby favorite, but securing the 2-year-old championship and the Eclipse Award for 2018.